Hey guys, and welcome back to Coping with Kim, a podcast that I started not too long ago because I believe that we all need to learn to face our pain, start coping with it, and letting that be the new normal in all of our lives. If you listened to the last episode, then you know we started peeling back the layers of my own personal story. That was part one. The early chapters, my childhood, my teenage years, unhealed pain, and how all of that shaped the choices I made in love and in life. Now this is part two. Today I want to share what happened when the life I had built, the family I had longed for, started falling apart. This episode is about the moment I stopped surviving for everyone else and started choosing myself, even when it was painful, even when I didn't feel ready. It's about becoming a single mom, losing the man who raised me, losing my mother after living together with her for 16 years, learning to navigate that grief, and numbing some of that pain with alcohol when it all felt too heavy. It's about how I found love again and what it meant to blend a family with 4 teenagers. This is the part of the story where I stopped pretending and started becoming a new version of me, Kim. So let's talk about it. Right out of cosmetology school, I opened my own salon. I had a great clientele at the cosmetology school, and it just fit for me to open my own salon. I was young and I was driven, and I had a vision. That salon was more than just a business. It was my independence. It was showing that just because I did not finish college, did not mean I couldn't be successful. It was my first big step into creating something that belonged only to me. And around that same time, I was set up on a blind date. It was actually probably about a year after I started the business. And that's how I met the man who would become the father of my children. We started dating and eventually got serious, but not before life threw me another curveball. I started having this pain in my side, my lower abdomen towards the side, and it got so bad that after a while I decided to go to the doctor. And little did I know, I was pregnant. And it turned out to be a tubal pregnancy. And the pain was coming from the baby trying to grow, but it had died. It didn't make it. And the doctor told me that had it continued to grow, I could have died. It would have ruptured my tube, and I would have bled to death within a short period of time, not knowing what was going on with me. And it was confusing to me because I was on the pill. I had no idea I was pregnant and sure wasn't trying to be pregnant. But the pregnancy happened most likely because of scar tissue that had formed from the abortion that I had had earlier in my life when I was 16. And of course I was devastated. I was physically and emotionally devastated in every way you can imagine. And when I was told that my chances of getting pregnant were very slim, something inside me just shifted. I can't explain it. I became obsessed with the idea of becoming a mother. And I remembered sitting down with, at that time, my boyfriend, who later became my children's father, And we'd been together for a couple of years then, and I said to him, where are we headed with this relationship? He felt like we were going to be together. And I said, well, if that's the case, I am scared I'm not going to be able to get pregnant. And basically, I was telling him if we were going to be together, then I wanted to get off the pill and start trying to have a baby because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to. And he said, okay, probably not thinking that I was serious. And he had started a new job a little before this, a really good job with a large food company as a salesman, and was driving an hour and a half back and forth to work where his territory was. And I had my business. And so we started trying. And it took about a year. Now, I don't know what I was thinking because I wasn't even concerned about marriage at that time. I needed to know that I could have a baby. And I also had this business, so if something happened that he wanted to move on, I would be able to take care of this child. And about a year later, I ended up pregnant. I was so excited. You would have thought I had won the lottery. I had shared this passion with several friends of mine and my clientele, not all of my clientele, but a lot of my clientele, and they were all so excited for me. They knew that this was that important to me. And I had people that sent me flowers, balloons. I mean, they shared my joy. That's the kind of clientele that I had. So when this became a reality, he said, well, we have to get married. I mean, we can't have a baby and not be married. And I was like, okay. So we made that decision, and I was about 3 months along when we actually got married. And 6 months later, this beautiful baby boy entered our lives. We had a family, and we were doing whatever it took to make it work. I started driving back and forth at that time to my job, where he could be full-time in his territory. I had family helping me with my son, so I could stay 2 nights a week, work 3 days, and then be home as a full-time wife and mom. Things were moving along really well, I thought. And I had excused a lot of red flags because I thought the stress from his job, having a new baby and a family, this is how people, become very stressed, and I excused a lot of red flags in his behavior. Until one day, he dropped a bomb on me and said he had cheated, just out of nowhere. Not with someone that he wanted to be with, just like it was no big deal. But to me, it was a big deal. I'd always told him that would be a deal breaker. So some verbal abuse was happening. He wasn't coming home during the normal hours that you come home, and I'd made excuses for that because of his job. But things were getting worse, and I decided to separate. So I moved back home, took my son, and after a few months, he had decided he wanted his family back. So he put all the effort in, and together we did a little counseling and made the decision that we would try again as a family. So my son and I went back, And I thought things would really change, and they did for a while. But then some verbal abuse, some odd behavior, things were going on again that weren't normal. And about the age of 4, 3.5, I guess, my son was asking me, am I going to ever have a brother or sister? Well, I knew the answer would be no, because I really knew this marriage wasn't going to work. I just didn't know how the end of the story was going to happen. And some really bad behavior started happening, things I didn't understand. I'd actually had, it was a little more than verbal abuse and the beginning of some physical abuse. And I started feeling just not good. I was exercising. I was doing everything that you should do to stay in shape and feel well. I'd had to take some antibiotics, and I was on the pill. I had 1 tube and, a very, very slim chance of ever getting pregnant. I had my period every month for a full week, but I knew I needed to go get checked out just to make sure everything was okay, since I was a high risk for tubal pregnancies. And I went to the doctor, and I was pregnant 4 months along with a beautiful baby girl. Well, I decided then that maybe this would give us a new start. And God had not only given me one beautiful child, but He was going to give me another. And so I had to make this family work. We had to do whatever it took. And things got worse. She was born, and oh my gosh, she was so adorable, so perfect. It was just amazing that God sent me this beautiful baby girl when I least expected it. And at that time, my husband had decided he wanted out of the food service business and into the restaurant business. And because he knew exactly how to run a restaurant, I supported him. I said, okay, we can do this. And it wasn't long into that went really well. I mean, it was like booming. And my daughter was about 18 months, and things were really starting to get bad. If I asked any questions, it was just bad. And he really became verbally abusive, and the physical abuse started. And then I found out he was cheating again with a girl that worked at our restaurant. And then I found some more things out. There was some substance abuse going on. Well, this is not the life that I wanted for myself or my children. And he said things would change. I really think he tried, but they didn't. So I stuck around for a while, and one night it got really bad, and I ended up with a big black eye. My son had come in and seen a few things he didn't need to see, and he just went to his room, shut the door, and played his video games. And I said, what am I doing? I want a family so bad, but I'm living a nightmare, and they're living this nightmare. So I finally made the decision to go. I went back home, and we got into a small house. I had always had a good clientele in my own hometown. And once again, he started trying to come be with us, showing me that he could do better. And it wasn't getting better. It was, I don't know, I think it was just him wanting to, but I think he couldn't. So our lives were on different paths, let's just say. And I finally made the decision to divorce him. And he didn't really want the divorce, but he didn't want to change his life. So we went along hoping things would get better with him, and it just didn't. It got worse. It got scary, very scary for the children and I ended up going through with the divorce, and he still kept coming around and wanting to see the children, and of course I let him, and I think he, down deep in his soul, he really, really did want this family. But other things had come into play. He called to tell me he was coming to visit one day, and the children really needed to see him, and so we were prepared. But what we weren't prepared for was he showed up with his girlfriend, who was 8 months pregnant. We were in our early 30s, and she was quite a bit younger. And we were just supposed to see this news without even a warning. So I knew right then I was done. This had really complicated things. Even though we were divorced, I guess I had hope somewhere down the road and thought he did too. But that was it. It was over. So through the years, we all got some counseling, and I thought that would, fix everything, but it doesn't ever get fixed until you face it and deal with it. So I just put my life into my children, worked extra hard because I wasn't getting any child support, maybe would get a little here and there. And if I didn't work, we didn't have money. They were involved in games, sports. I made it to all their activities. And sometimes I would even go to their schools and read and bring candy and just field trips, whatever it took. But I was broken and wasn't processing my own pain. So through the years, I, of course, was a social drinker, sometimes a little more than a social drinker, but it never affected my work or my ability to be a parent. And they saw me down and depressed, but they also saw me get up and try harder, and I thought we were moving along pretty good. And then down the road, another big devastation happened. My father died, suddenly, unexpected, and he was my rock. He was my person that I told everything to, I talked with often. He encouraged me. He and my stepmom would help me with the children, and he was too young to die. He was 71, but hadn't retired, and I did not know how I was going to make it. So the drinking increased, and it never, like I said, never affected my work or my ability to be a mom, but it was affecting me, and I really didn't know it. Or maybe I didn't want to know it. I was in denial. My dad had always been that father figure for my children also, and it was another form of abandonment because their father had not really been that involved in their lives. Here and there, a visit here and there, and that was it. So I was extremely broken. They were extremely broken, but we had to get back up and live. And my mother had worked as a director of a daycare program on the air base and had been out of the country for a few years. And then she moved to Colorado and worked there and lived there and loved it. But she had decided to come home, that I needed her. and she knew that. So she came home, and we made a decision to live together. So she had a house that she had rented, but it needed to be larger, and it was close to the school. And I had dated some, not much, and I just had accepted I wasn't going to ever find that someone, and raising my children was the most important thing. Well, I'd been a single parent now for about 11 to 12 years. We'd made this decision to move in, and suddenly someone came along that I had gone to high school with. And we had never hung out. We had never really known each other that well, but I'd seen him at a few of the class reunions. And he had been divorced. And we just really connected. Well, I had already made this commitment with my mom, and this person I really fell in love with, and he fell in love with me. So he was actually working in a town about 5 hours away, 4 hours away. But his family lived in my town, our hometown, which we both graduated together in. And we wanted to be together. So we made a decision that we would just combine with my mother. All of us would live together. And he finally left his job and moved back to our hometown. And we got married about a year after we dated. We had a blended family with 4 teenagers and my mother. 3 of which lived with us, my 2 and his son, and his daughter lived with her mother about 12 hours away. And we always knew she wanted to come back after she graduated and go to college here, but that didn't happen. And our children weren't really excited about all this like we thought they'd be. It was hard for them. They all had their own problems, their own wounds, and I guess we thought our happiness would make everything okay. So through all that, my husband wasn't finding the work that he needed in our town, and I had committed with this blending home with my mother. So he went to work in a larger area about an hour and a half away, and that commute was a little hard, so we decided to get him an apartment there and just make this work. I had a great business going here and the commitment with my mother, and we had a place to get away, and that went well for a while. And more problems with the children, then grandchildren started coming into play, and that's awesome. You know, they're precious, they're beautiful, they're innocent. And it just became hard. And I guess with me, I started drinking more. Still thinking I had everything under control, but I didn't. I became, I guess, more bitter and angry as life just wasn't going the way I thought it should. And I took that out on the people I loved. And it caused some scars and some wounds. And finally, about 3 years ago, and I guess we had been married about 15 years at this time, I knew I had to do something. So I started a 12-step support group. And at first, I guess wasn't taking this very serious. And a year into that, after doing well for a little bit and then drinking again because I guess I thought I deserved a treat since I had made it maybe 2 weeks and maybe 6 weeks. But I wasn't taking it serious until they suggested that I work the steps, which I didn't want to in the beginning. But they were so nice and supportive. And I thought, well, this isn't working. I must try something different. And in the midst of that, before I really took this serious, my mother, who was always healthy, had a great social life, was still driving, at the age of 88, she gets really sick. And within 3 weeks, she died. Well, oh my gosh, we'd lived together for 16 years. We had our ups and downs, but I loved her dearly. She was a huge part of my life, and everyone loved her. So I had realized this is going to be a breaking point for me. Either I'm going to sink or I'm going to swim. And I decided to swim. So I got serious about my recovery, and I guess that's when I realized I had not really processed a lot of pain that I had endured through the years and just kept packing it down. But I was always so good with my clients, and I actually felt their pain. And I didn't realize that in the midst of all this, I had forgot about me. I mattered. I deserved to heal. And until I did that, I wasn't going to be any better to all these people, especially my personal family. I wasn't going to be the version that I really wanted to be. So I got serious. And today I have been sober for almost 3 years. And I cannot tell you what this healing has done for me. I am still in the same life. We still have the same issues. But I see things through different eyes. And since I see things through different eyes, I'm becoming a better person. And people around me are noticing. So I am just grateful that at this age, which I guess I was probably about 59, that my grandchildren were going to get to know a different version of what they were beginning to know. And that was not me. I did not want that to be me. I didn't want them to remember their KK as this person who would get angry at times and say ugly things. My children knew the pain. They might be able to get past that, but they weren't liking this either. So they were so proud of me. I've had to do a lot of apologizing, which has helped me to heal. And I've learned to process things as they come and not let them pile up to where I explode. And I want to encourage you to do that. Life is hard. I get it. Boy, do I get it. But you are the only one that knows your pain, and you are allowed to have it. So I'm going to encourage you to give yourself some grace. And if you are in your own season of breaking or rebuilding, I want you to know you are not alone. People are in the same place. Lots of people. And healing takes time. Strength looks different on different days. And no matter how messy your life gets, you still get to write your ending. So today I want to close with some affirmations that I've been telling my own self, and maybe they will help you. I did the best I could with what I knew. My healing matters as much as my children's. I am allowed to rewrite my story at any point. I honor the strength it took to walk away from what wasn't healthy. And I give myself grace for how I coped in my pain. You know, even after all the pain and the heartbreak and the detours of my life, I am so grateful that God never stopped chasing me. He was always there, even when I was numb, even when I couldn't hear Him, even when I was just trying to survive. And I'm so grateful for my spiritual foundation, or I don't know where I would be today. And maybe that's what I want you to take from this chapter of my story. That it is not too late, no matter how far off track you think you are, no matter what's been done or what you've had to do to make it this far. There's still time to heal. There's still time to grow. There is still time to get your life right. And God cares. I care. And you can do this. We can do this. Our children are watching. Our grandchildren are listening, even when they don't say a word. And they need us to be real. They don't need us to be perfect. They need us to rise above our circumstances. So today, just know you are not too far gone. It is not too late. And you are not alone. So be kind to yourself. Love yourself enough to rise above. And be kind to someone else, even if you don't want to, because it is the right thing to do, and it is healing. I want to thank you for being here with me today, and if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone. Share it with everyone, because one day at a time, one problem at a time, we can all do better. So take care, and we will talk soon.